Okay, so we jump in here to the start of race 1 of the Restart Esports Invitational series. This is a race series I was really looking forward to. It'll be my first sort of proper taste of joining in with a kind of a truly elite field, in all honesty. This race series has been introduced. It's not sort of officially Zwift affiliated, I don't believe, but it has been introduced from Dean Cunningham and sort of Restart Racing. They've looked to reintroduce the type of team series that historically was there when we had things like the Premier League and the Grand Prix, that really has been missing from that kind of elite racing calendar this season. The Zwift World Series had been added, but that was really very much an individual focus. And of course, anyone who's kind of been following the progress of that series will know that that has been postponed, as a couple of issues are being looked into with accuracies of trainers, etc. So I really didn't know how this was going to go. It was a team race, but it was the top 3 riders. It was those that would actually score points. So you could have a team of up to 10, but it was your top 3 finishers were what would actually be what would count towards the overall team prize. So there were plenty of opportunities to use other riders within the group. I was kind of expecting perhaps myself as one of our slightly weaker riders to be given a job then of perhaps trying to help control some sort of breakaway or just put in a big effort to help bridge a gap somewhere. So yeah, it really gave an opportunity for lots of team tactics to come into play. And the route that we were taking on was quite a long one. It was 3 laps of the sand and sequoias, which gave us a total race distance of, I think it was just under 63 kilometres. So we were looking at probably an hour and 25-ish of racing, which is, slightly longer than your standard Zwift race. So obviously keeping on top of fueling, etc. So as we approached the base of that rise out of the desert to Col de Saddle Springs, I have to be honest, I was feeling a little bit apprehensive of my chances of actually hanging with this group. As you can see, just purely based on the number of orange ticks there for verified riders, this is a truly stacked field. A lot of the riders here are riders who've got a strong and a long history of riding elite level races, and I'm miles off that level. So I didn't know if I was actually going to be able to hang with them. I sort of had a bit of a job to basically do my best, along with, you can see my teammate there with the green hat on, Angus Butler. Myself and Angus, through discussions before the start of the race, had quite a similar role, which was basically to try and bury ourselves in the pack, do as little work as we could, because out of, and particularly speaking for myself, I'm not speaking, I don't know Angus very well, so I can't speak for his own sort of personal strengths particularly. I know he's quite a strong sort of sprinter, but speaking for myself, my weakest element is probably that higher sustained power. So I'm slightly stronger in the sprinting side of things. So following any breakaways, particularly in this type of company with riders of this quality, is just an absolute no-go for me. So I basically had to just try and survive to see if I could be there at the sprint, at the finish, or at least be able to provide some sort of job at the finish there. I didn't know whether I was going to get over this climb. I mean, this is the first time we're hitting the climb. This isn't the true start of that KOM there, but it's those rollers that lead into it. So essentially, the climb kind of starts from the desert. I was trying to position myself and stay right towards the front of the group, just then, because when the group then does start to kind of stretch, because it is a fast climb this. The actual speeds are, particularly this part, you can see on the route profile, it's very up and down, and the speeds on the climb are quite high. So it really is a lot of draft on this climb, all the way up here, all the way up to the top of Titans. So it's really important just to bury yourself in the pack. I didn't know if I was going to be able to survive, so I wanted to stay on the front of the group or towards the front of the group, just to allow myself that little bit of sliding space. So one thing I was trying to do, I was really keeping my eyes open for Angus. And I was going to try, he's someone who's got a lot more experience of riding these sort of higher end races then. So I was trying to keep my focus on him. I knew he had a very similar job to me. So I was going to try and shadow him in many ways up the climbs here. And just try and keep him in sight, try and keep at a similar pack position, and just basically do what I could to try and hold on. So that was the first part of the climb. Goal achieved, managed to stay on over that rolling section, but it's still before we hit the proper Titans KOM. Again, it's relatively not too steep. It's quite pitchy. And we were looking at around about a 4-minute effort. But again, I did not know whether I was going to be able to hang on in this type of company. So it was basically my goal each lap was just to try and hang on. Simply hang on, make that my finish line. The KOM banner here was my finish line this time up. And if I could be there, or if I get there, it was then time to reevaluate and see what I could do again. When a few of these orange numbers started, I've seen a few orange numbers in the rider list there. That was concerning. I was thinking, if this is going already, it's going to be difficult for me to kind of hang on. So I picked Angus's wheel out there, and I just focused on just staying as close to him as I could, because I knew that he was probably going to have a better understanding of how to position himself and pace this than me. So yeah, that was just what I was going to try and hang on to. Thankfully, it did start early on. As you can see, the group is starting to stretch there. I'm doing 5 over 500 watts, 6.5, 7 watts a kilo there, just to make sure I held on. But the group did back off. We went hard up here, but nothing crazy. But I certainly suspected that when we come around to lap 2, when there was a prime bonus at the top, at the actual banner, things would definitely change. It's going to be key here. Okay, so we've dropped forward now we've just got onto that Titans Grove KOM on the second lap. So as we went through the desert, it was quite predictable in what happened. There were a number of attacks. We brought back those 2 early attackers, Nicky Hoog and the other rider. And yeah, there was a lot of attacks going. It wasn't exactly steady, but there was nothing insane. The group was really, really alert to kind of pulling those riders back and not letting anyone get too much an advantage. So I was really feeling it, I have to be honest. We were on the climb here. The heart rate's already in the high 180s, and we're about, I'd say, 2/3 of the way up here of the KOM proper. Like I said, there is points at the top of the climb, so we were expecting riders to this to be the fastest and potentially the hardest one. So again, just try to position myself towards the front. I've seen some orange numbers there of guys going for the points at the banner. That wasn't something we were looking to do. We weren't intending on putting any of our riders to focus on those points, but I wanted to just be towards the front, because when these guys are surging, as you can see what's happening now, and that group is really stretching, it just gave me a little bit of sliding room to try and make sure that I stay in contact there. It is taking a bit of an effort to hold on. Nothing insane, nothing really, really crazy, like not a max sprint. But we did need to hit orange numbers a number of times just to kind of make sure that you're not losing pack position. If you look at the mini map, you can see how stretched that is. That's really, really stretched out there. So that's the banner. And it was crucial here just on that slight descent, just to give it a little kick to make sure you got some of that forward momentum. Because, like I say, you can see how stretched out the riders are there. So just one long snaking line. And what you don't want to happen is any gaps to open that you then have to try and close across. Because when you're travelling, we're doing 69k an hour downhill here. There was a lot of riders on the gas. Those gaps are almost impossible to come across. But yeah, I gave it a little kick across the top. You can see there's a split opening in the mini map there. And nice and safely embedded within this group. So it was now a case of just trying to get as much recovery as I could, because that was quite a hard effort. The last minute of that climb, it was really on. But I was safe. I was in the group where I was safe. So that was like my second finish line, my mid-race finish line, if you want to call it that, was achieved. It is slightly rampy on the way out here, just after the descent. So it was just, again, it was key just to be focused, and not get caught out. There's going to be a lot of tired riders after having put in that effort, and just make sure you don't get caught the wrong side of any splits. Okay, so we finished the descent, and I thought we'd have a quick look at something that was happening on a number of occasions as we were going through the desert, actually. So that flat section, a lot of riders were trying attacks, and following that second ascent of the Titan's Grove, there was a lot more fatigue in the group, and this looked like a really dangerous, potentially very dangerous move. There was a group of about 16 riders that had managed to really get off the front there and create a bit of a gap, and it was really stringing out. And this is just, like I say, this is an example of something that maybe happened about 10 times during the race, where riders actually pushed quite hard to try and create some sort of separation. Again, knowing what my sort of job was, I was focusing mainly on trying to just kind of bury myself in whatever the bulk of the pack was. So I haven't got the power to follow or to be in a breakaway like that. So I just needed to stay in the main bulk of the pack and hope that actually it came back together. But I found myself in a position here when I was on the wheel of Ruben Dont, who's a really, really strong rider. And I just found myself on his wheels. So I decided, I could see actually here that he was going to try and close. And that was a really dangerous looking breakaway. And because I was sat there, I felt that it was important to just go and just see what happens. I might as well actually try going with him, because I was essentially given I don't want to call it an armchair ride across, because it took a bit of an effort there, a bit of a kick to actually follow. But I had that assistance really to get across the gap, and fairly easily actually I made it into that front group. And you can see in the mini-map there is a split there, so it really did have potential of kind of going away, particularly a group size there of it would have been maybe 16 or 17 riders. It had the potential to stay away, but pretty much just as we got there, the guys who were driving the pace at the front of this pack backed off, and everything, it's really stretched, but everything stitched itself back together. We were back as one big pack again. I was a little bit worried then, because it had hurt me just after doing that climb. I was concerned that actually that effort is going to dent my capabilities really of being able to be there at the finish. But I just needed to make sure that as the bulk of the pack came along, just gave it, you can see the power, it should just kind of rise a little bit here, just give it a little kick, just to make sure you got some of that forward momentum, and that you're picking up the speed of those riders coming past you. That was it there, just a little bit of a kick, just to get that forward momentum, so that you're not kind of moving backwards as the pack is catching you, because that's quite an easy way to just to lose a little bit of attention and actually kind of slide off the back. It had been, with the exception of the climbs and those attacks, the race had stayed fairly steady. But we were talking about this now, Discord actually. I mean, it's still, I got 320 watts there as an average, and we just come to an hour of racing. So it's still not exactly, it's not exactly easy. It's far from easy, but it had stayed nice and steady. And those attacks, they were regular, but they were kind of quite manageable. So again, there's riders going off the front again. So it was just my job again, burying myself in the pack, do as little work as I could. I've got that average power and I haven't really done any work. I've just followed. So it does show how strong and the power that some of these elite riders have got, if that's what you need to do, to just follow. But again, final climb up the Titans. Would I be able to survive? I really, really didn't know. But I was now determined. I was now really, really determined, knowing that I got this far. I just needed to get up it that once more, and hopefully I could be there and do something at the finish line. So we were right at the top of the climb. My heart was under 190, as you can see from the camera there. I'm really hurting. I nearly got dropped on multiple occasions early on those rollers. I had to dig super, super deep just to be here. Thankfully, it did ease off slightly in the middle section, but then it really kicked on hard towards the end. But I was over the top of the climb. And if you look at the mini-map, there's a few riders coming off the front there. There's a group of about 4 or 5, and that contained 2 of our Wahoo riders. So that was really, really great. Like I said, it's the top 3 of the point scorers. So if we've got 2 riders in a group of 5 that are going off into a breakaway, potential breakaway, how excellent that is. I mean, you could picking up some really good points there. There were no other team up there with 2 riders, so we had the potential here of scoring really good points if that breakaway stayed away. So we were using Discord, talking about it. We were encouraging those guys, Jamie, and apologies if I butcher his name, but Kalebi, to really dig in deep. And you can just see Angus there in the green hat rolling to the front and backing off. So for the remainder of us from Wahoo who were in the group, we were just talking about how we were going to help that breakaway go. So there's this steep climb here, this short kicker. So we said about how we wanted to kind of give it a really good effort here, a nice big effort, get to the front of the pack. You can see us hitting orange numbers there. Get to the front of the group and then totally back off the power just to disrupt the chase. So there's myself, Eves and Angus. We literally come to the front of the group and then totally back off the power. And that really helps those guys in the breakaway get away, because they are sitting on 5.5, 6 watts per kilo, and then there's us 3 roll into the front of this group. Again, we give it a bit of an effort to try and roll through, and then just totally come to the front of the group. Happens again here, and then lay off the power. And that just completely, the riders behind who might want to be chasing this, they're going to be hitting the back of us and kind of getting caught slightly in our sticky draft. So by us doing that, and again, I give it a little kick again, coming through the pack, and we kept just trying to roll ourselves to the front of the group. We do it again, myself, Eves and Angus, get to the front and ease off, and just try and slow our pack down. And you can see the guys up the road, they're up now to 17, 18 seconds, and it really does look like they're going to get away. So I was really, really happy, basically. Firstly, that I'd managed to stay and be in the group, but secondly, that now, almost regardless of what happens to myself and how I finish, I know that I've managed to play a role here for the team, just by kind of creating that disruption with a couple of our other riders at the front. We do it again here. We roll to the front and then ease off the power. and that just disrupts this pack running. So this pack chasing. So that's an example there of, a lot of people would say that there isn't any teamwork, and there are no team tactics in sort of Zwift or any virtual racing. But that really is an example of how that has played out. Because the guys up the road now, I think they run about 25 seconds. So they really are pulling that gap out. And just disrupting the chase. There are 23, 24 seconds. Doing it again, we're just backing off. And just disrupting that chase is helping them to create that gap. So that was really, really great to be part of, basically. So yeah, I am hurting, but just the kind of, we were talking on at the time on Discord, and it really did help me find like an extra 10%, just to kind of dig in deeper. I mean, we're a long way into a race here in really, really strong company. So yeah, it just helped find an extra few percent to really help again get a really good result for the team. So we'll just drop forward now and look at exactly how that final K or so. Okay, so we dropped through to 1.3 left to go. The guys have made the breakaway. They've pulled out a really good gap. There were a couple of attackers from this group prior to this, but this now is when they're really starting to lay it down from this main pack. So there's 5 riders up the road. So there's a lot of teams not represented up there. And these are guys now looking for the kind of 6th position onwards. We only needed to get one of our riders scoring here. So I literally just put the call out. I could see how much it was stretching, and I was really feeling it. So I shouted, you could see Angus there in the green hat. I felt as if my best job here was to come through and really try and make sure that there's no crazy big gaps here. So I sort of shouted to him basically through Discord. I just see him coming onto my wheel there, that I'll try and help provide a bit of a lead out and just make sure that I come through and help stitch some of that group together. So I just buried myself as best I could, and then released him basically with 350 meters to go. So I was completely gassed there, but I just put in that effort over kind of like 25-30 seconds as that group was stretching, just so that he didn't need to close it himself, and just help bring that pack together so there were no really big gaps, and that gave Angus an opportunity to kind of sprint then with the main field, rather than actually kind of needing to come through the field or, like say, being sort of